Thank you, Kara. My name is Richard Evans, and I am I'm an architect and the chair of the Replan Committee of the False Creek South Neighbourhood Association. This is the place that I care about, our home in False Creek Housing Cooperative that I share with my wife Carol and where we raised our family. We moved into False Creek Co-op in 1986, the same year as the World Exposition on Transportation and Communication, a seminal year in Vancouver's evolution, which many mark as one of the key starting points of Vancouver's transition from a relatively small city to a highly desirable place to live and invest in. This image was taken in 1975. The unit that would become our home is at the Red Arrow, and here we are today. False Creek South was created between the mid-1970s and 1989 as an affordable mixed-income community on reclaimed industrial land. I need to underscore that point about it being on reclaimed industrial land. At this point, it was a brownfield site, as we call it in the industry, and having housing providers locate there was a big risk at the time, so I need to underscore that point. About 5,500 people currently call False Creek South home. Today, the area continues to be an inclusive community for all ages and incomes, with a mix of co-op housing, strata condominiums, and nonprofit rental housing, which we call enclaves in the community plan of the day. Units were built to accommodate all kinds of households, from singles to families to seniors. The City of Vancouver owns 80% of False Creek South land, and residents moved here with 60-year leases from the city. The City of Vancouver established a residents association for its new community, the False Creek South Neighbourhood Association, in the 1970s to be its conduit to local residents. I, along with a few of my neighbors and with the False Creek South Neighbourhood Association, created Replan in 2010 to work with the City of Vancouver on developing new lease options to preserve the community beyond lease expiry. We believe that new leases are enablers for creating affordable housing options for all residents in co-ops, nonprofits, and stratas to remain in the community. We also support an increase in density while protecting the neighborhood's character to welcome others to this wonderful community. The mission of Replan is to create a dialogue with the City of Vancouver to establish a process to preserve and enhance the False Creek South community beyond lease end, enabling the communities to evolve and diversify in a way that is sustainable for existing residents in the City of Vancouver. I grew up in the Okanagan Valley in south central BC with parents who had a strong emphasis on social responsibility. My professional life as an architect grew from this into a practice with a strong interest in a collaborative approach to community building. My office designed schools and institutional buildings for primarily First Nation client groups. My intention with my practice is to, with others, do work that is socially meaningful and responsible. I have never seen myself working in the for-market residential or commercial world for this reason. My involvement with the community housing sector began when Carol and I, with our young family, moved to False Creek Housing Cooperative in 1986. This move felt very risky at the time. We could not afford to buy into the market, and my experience knew nothing about cooperative enterprises of pretty much any kind. Over the years, we learned more about this new concept, and our attraction and interest in the benefits of cooperative living grew. This interest translated into becoming increasingly involved with the management and operations of our cooperative, which is a self-managed entity, and gradually extended into a vision that located our cooperative within the broader context of our False Creek South community. This perspective led to my involvement with the False Creek South Neighbourhood Association in 2008 and the creation of the whole Replan process. For me, community organizing begins with a dinner table conversation and expands organically outward from that. Me and my dinner companions have our own passions and connections within the community, and if the original ideas resonate with others, the organization, if it can be called that at its inception, grows concentrically outward from the dinner table center. The process by its nature is long, and being volunteer-based relies on individual passions rather than money as the main driver. Fortunately for us, the fledgling organization attracted residents and professionals who brought with them a myriad of skills. With a core of 20-plus committed individuals, much can be done. And with that size and skill level, a healthy level of redundancy exists that comes to bear when any one person steps back for health or personal reasons. Over the years, I've learned that patience is a virtue and resiliency is an important quality in the face of the inevitable encounters with our landlord. We call our landlord our partner, whose organization and way of thinking about the world differs at times substantially from ours. Early on, Replan developed a vision and set of principles that were very much intended to align with those of our City of Vancouver partner. When I use the word partner, I should say a collection of partners, because the entity of the City of Vancouver is really a collection of a variety of departments, personalities, and interests that at any one time can differ substantially from and even contradict each other. Replan's principles, which have been in place for 10 years and have been widely discussed and endorsed by our community, speak to residents' ability to remain within the community, which we refer to as aging in place, developing a range of options for residents to transition between tenure types should they choose in the face of what is likely to be a significant increase in the land lease rate, conserving the historic character of the area, which is primarily a question of the form of development, infilling additional density in keeping with the historic character of the area, aligning with the overall civic policy objectives of our City of Vancouver landlord, and undertaking all of this within an inclusive community-based decision-making process. The key steps toward the realization of our vision are to secure long-term leases. Of high importance within this context is to explore with our City of Vancouver partner lease extensions that are within a housing trust governance model to enable affordable out-of-market developments which are undertaken in conjunction with nonprofit housing providers. Our vision includes undertaking the land use planning process in such a way as to build upon and retain the unique historic character of the area. And our vision also includes exploring models of community governance that entrenches the ability of the community to grow and change in a self-determined way into the future. At this point, we are very much at a crossroads. The entrenched way of doing business at City Hall is to create future development parcels on which the for-profit development market can build a mix of affordable and market residential units. Affordable in this context being 70 or 80% of market value, which remains out of reach for most working families in today's extremely high land value market. Replan, on the other hand, proposes an outside of market development strategy in partnership with non-market housing providers. The two approaches are very different, and although the policymakers are acknowledging the need for innovative ways to achieve affordability within our hyperactive housing market, it remains a huge undertaking to bridge from the traditional ways of doing business to one that seeks equal partnership with the city to seriously consider undertaking affordable housing development within a unique community housing trust governance model. The point being to create governance and policy mechanisms to take market speculation of the home and community creation process. This is what community housing trusts can be structured to do. In the end, we are seeking to continue a successful city legacy, one which began in the early 1970s at a time when innovation was needed. Today, the same spirit of innovation needs to come to bear. Replan's points of strength are our ability to successfully mobilize a community of mixed tenures, all of whom bring with them very different views on public and private interests, and developing the capacity within this context to articulate an alternative to the forms of development that market forces say are inevitable in the shaping of our city. Time will tell, but the eternal optimist in me suggests that we have a more than reasonable chance to be successful. If successful, there is every reason to believe that Replan's impact can go beyond housing and beyond the residents within the community of False Creek South. Perhaps collectively, we need to see publicly owned land as a community asset and recognize that Replan's efforts contribute to the discussion of ways of approaching community stewardship and provides a potential model to grow that asset and community equity. My journey from a naive young father who happened by chance to join a housing cooperative has turned into an adventure of curiosity into the possibilities of innovation within the nonprofit housing sector, all within the wonderful vehicle that has become to be known as Replan. We all possess the qualities of patience, resiliency, and tenacity that are at the foundation of any social change movement. Undoubtedly, these qualities were on Margaret Mead's mind when she said in a quote that unfortunately appears cliché to those who still feel that in today's world, social policy objectives can be achieved by traditional trickle-down market economics. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." I think that everyone in this room will agree with me that we are at a crisis point in our collective ability to maintain affordable communities into the future in the face of a market-driven paradigm that cares nothing for these values. I want to leave you with the image of my dinner table of 10 years ago, which grew to include our City of Vancouver partners about 8 years ago and has now expanded to include you. Thank you.